So I will start with just a couple of quick questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So I mean, I guess the basic one, of course, would be, how did you decide to tackle what is obviously a super controversial issue, and what was your goal in sort of making the project?
It kind of just happened. So Greg I've known for a very long time, and he shared with me the idea for a race on Memorial Day weekend, and I was taken by it, I was moved by it, I kind of visually saw it, and I had a week to decide, so I was like, I'm make a movie. And it happened really fast, and I think I didn't have time to really think about the topic and how daunting it was. I never thought I was going to make a documentary, so it was just kind of like, here we go.
And so you had Greg. So how did you hear about Cody? Cody, how did you get in touch? I mean, how did you respond to being in touch with Jessica and sort of participating in the project, deciding to participate in the project?
Greg actually introduced me to the idea of the Liberator. That the first weekend the first weekend that we were filming, he said, by the way, did you hear about this? And I said, no. And then I was like, And so I immediately started looking Cody up and called him.
Yes.
But he didn't want to talk to me.
It was a back and forth. I don't know, but she has a very winning way about her, and we talked about it, and she said she meant to make this documentary, and though not in as many words, she communicated that it would be humane and would be to her best purpose objective, and I was interested in being a part, so I did.
And I mean, when you started with Greg, I mean, before you knew about the Liberator, again, you didn't think so much about it, but like, were you looking for a counterbalance? Were you looking for, like, Greg's is very much a visual piece, obviously, and so were you looking for someone who, like Cody, is incredibly articulate and is able to sort of provide a different balance for the visuals with words, essentially?
At the very, very beginning, literally from hearing about a race and filming was 2 weeks. So there was no post-production in any form. I knew that the story immediately when we started filming, I was like, this had to be something bigger. But I didn't know what that was. So it just kind of started tumbling really, really fast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I can jump in as needed, but I would love to hear some questions from the audience. Right here, please.
Didn't I read in the paper that the 2 Colorado legislatures that were recalled were actually re-elected again last week?
Yes.
And should the film perhaps address that?
When I can maybe do another cut and pay to get it, yes, eventually that should, yes, it will probably be in there.
Other questions? Oh, sorry.
You're going to want to say that again.
Right over here, please, yes.
Man, well, that was great, first of all. And
Yes.
there's so many different sides, and I thought that was really fantastic to have so many different voices, so many oppositional voices. And I think I spent a long time feeling very mixed about how I feel about the whole thing as well. I'm curious, and the film doesn't talk a lot about statistics. I'm curious about how we compare as Americans to, particularly like the UK, which, as I understand, does not have legalized guns. There's some gray area there that I'm not entirely sure that I understand. Versus, say, Canada, which has legalized guns. How does America compare statistically in terms of overall murders and violence in these two communities? I think that should be a good barometer, right?
I wish I could go there with you right now, but I don't have that kind of knowledge that I feel acceptable to talk on it. Maybe Leah wants to speak on that.
Yeah, I can address that. The United States, of all Western industrialized countries, has by far the highest gun death rate, far exceeding Canada and the UK. We had 33,564 deaths in 2012, according to the Centers for Disease Control, and we had over 84,000 non-fatal gun injuries in 2012. And to contrast that with the UK, the number of gun deaths is under 100. What happened in 1996 in the United Kingdom, there was a mass shooting similar to what happened in Newtown. It took place in Dunblane, Scotland, where 12 5-year-olds and their gym teacher were shot with a handgun by Thomas Hamilton, a man who went in and just lost it. It was the morning. And after that occurred, 18 months later, Tony Blair's elected prime minister, but there had been a campaign started by the mothers of Dunblane called the Snowdrop Campaign, because it happened in the spring. And they came down to marched on Westminster, and the MPs took a vote, and the UK passed a law basically making it illegal to own a handgun, because the crime was committed with a handgun. And there have been no mass shootings in the UK since then. You might think also of Australia, the Port Arthur, Tasmania shooting, where over 30 people were killed by a man with an assault rifle. And Australia, under John Howard, Conservative Prime Minister, passed very, very strict measures, and they haven't had any mass shootings since, and their gun death rate has gone down. So yes, the United States is number one when it comes.
Why Canada then? Why does Canada not have such an issue if America does? And then could we also have a question about, like, does the loss of guns mean that it's just repurposed to knife violence or other violence? I don't know. Those are the questions. Those are the questions I'm wondering. To say, like, what, because I don't want to say that it's not implausible that maybe there is a deterrent in people having access to weapons. I don't know.
Well, first of all, Canada does regulate their guns far more than the United States does. Federally, we have very, very weak gun laws. There's no national registration. There are no national federal background checks for all gun sales. You know, we don't regulate guns for consumer health and safety, the only consumer product not regulated. So there's a lot that we could be doing that we're not doing to actually stem this flood of violence, death, and injury from guns, but we're not doing it. We know what can be done. States like New York have done things, California, Massachusetts. In fact, if you look at the states that have the highest versus lowest gun death rates in the country, New York has the fourth lowest. And we're a state of about 20 million people. We have, 70, 80 million visitors every year. And the reason we have a low gun death rate is for two reasons. We have strong gun laws, and we have relatively low gun ownership rates. Because don't forget that nearly 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides, and you referred to that. You know, people can, in the privacy of their home, guns in the home do not make you safer. You have accidental shootings. Just today I heard of a shooting in Newark, a child shooting another child in the home with a 9mm handgun. So, guns, when they're not regulated, when they're not stored safely, they create problems. People die, people get injured.